This is a premier SEC matchup here. This is what I like to call the Megan Maroney Bowl, right? Tennessee orange. I'll wear Tennessee orange for you, but she grew up in Georgia, went to Georgia, is an avid Georgia fan. But, the guy she was talking to in that song wore Tennessee orange. She had to make the sacrifice. Well, somebody in the SEC is going to have to be a sacrifice here at some point because it's a deep conference. There's a lot of good teams, and there's two of them facing off in Knoxville this weekend. Georgia, Tennessee. I love this rivalry, too. It's another SEC border rivalry. If you're down there, you understand the intensity of these rivalries. You understand the intensity of these games, and these two are going to bring it. As everybody knows right now, Georgia has beaten Tennessee in 8 consecutive matchups. And so the question is, Tennessee got the Alabama monkey off its back. Will they get the Georgia monkey off their back? Huge opportunity to do so this weekend. And assessing this matchup, I think that this team is more than capable of doing just that. This is a matchup that's going to teach us a lot about the competitive dynamic of the SEC because right now some teams have been tested. You saw Alabama fall to Florida State. You saw Ole Miss and Kentucky last weekend. You saw Florida fall to South Florida. So we've seen with some teams, maybe you saw LSU get tested by Clemson. Tennessee kind of sort of did with Syracuse, but that's a middle-of-the-pack ACC team who both sides of the football from a roster standpoint, they're both very much developing. And so for both of these teams, this is a huge test and is going to give us a sense of direction when it comes to the SEC and what it may look like, how everything may unfold this year. Everybody's freaking out about Georgia right now because their performances on offense and both of their last 2 respective games, both Marshall and Austin Peay, it's been a little choppy. It's been a little concerning. There's a few things that stuck out to me. And so just going through box score, watch these games back, there was one thing about the Marshall game that really stuck out to me. You want to know who the leading rusher was? Gunnar Stockton, Georgia's quarterback. So last year we knew it was a prevalent issue with the Bulldogs that they couldn't really establish their running game like they had in past years. And that had been a major strength. They could not get it going last year. They could not find their identity. Their offensive line was also kind of clunky last year too. And this year, you're seeing similar issues. It's been against Marshall. It's been against Austin Peay. I know we have a short sample size, so you can't make any definitive judgments just yet. But you're seeing a few mildly concerning signs of Georgia. The other thing too, Georgia hasn't had a receiver go for 100 yards in a single game yet. I always get that 100 and 1,000 mixed up. I don't know why. But they have not had a receiver have 100 receiving yards in a game yet. And playing Marshall, playing Austin Peay, those are 2 matchups where, quite honestly, they should have had a 100-yard receiving game at this point, but they haven't yet. Georgia's defensive line has looked decent. They've generated pressure as expected. Those offensive lines that they're going up against, I mean, compared to an SEC defensive line, they should be getting a lot of pressure. But nonetheless, they've been getting the job done. But when it comes to Georgia's offense, right, we're some of the same symptoms from last year resurface this year. There does come a point, though, with a Kirby Smart coach team. Will they figure it out? Because those are key 3 words that we use with Nick Saban and with Kirby Smart. They always seem to figure it out at some point. When there's underperforming components of the team, there's something about those guys, their DNA, their fabric, their style of coaching, and their knowledge of the game to where they're able to tap into strengths and really get it flowing, whatever unit it is that's underperforming. So is this the game where Georgia really establishes itself and asserts its dominance to its run game once again, like it has done so notoriously in the past? Is this the game where Gunnar Stockton really comes out, where Gunnar Stockton really arrives? Because he did what he had to do to beat Texas in the second half of the SEC championship. The Notre Dame game wasn't anything special. The Marshall game was okay. Austin Peay was kind of shoddy. So is this the Gunnar Stockton arrival game? That's the question here. I'm going to say this about Joey Aguilar, because this man caught a lot of unnecessary strays in the offseason. There were a lot of people who shit on Joey Aguilar before he even took a snap for Tennessee because of how he played at App State. You know, he was inconsistent, was up and down. Never really played at UCLA, and now he's here at Tennessee. And so he's going from Sun Belt experience to the SEC. Trust me, he had his share of critics. He's had his share of people who did not believe in him. And it's been perceived and categorized by a lot of us going into the season that this is kind of a reset year for the Vols. It was expected, Josh Heupel acknowledged this, it was expected that they're going to lose a lot of guys this year to either the NFL and then, of course, your usual flow, the transfer portal as well. But then the Nico situation happens. And Nico Iamaleava was the quarterback of the future for Tennessee. We didn't really see exactly what we expected of him last year, but there was that optimism going into year two of maybe this will be his level up year. Well, now he's in LA with UCLA, and Joey Aguilar is Tennessee's quarterback. And so upon the arrival of Joey Aguilar, that was the expectation, was given the guys that Tennessee lost and the fact that there's a former App State quarterback as Tennessee's signal caller, this team may understandably so take a step back this year. Well, Joey Aguilar pulled a Lee Corso and said, not so fast, y'all. Within the first 2 weeks of the season, he's already more than halfway to 1,000 passing yards. He's slinging the rock. And as you all know, Tennessee has gone through its variations of offense. Josh Heupel's first years, this was a high-flying offense predicated on passing, on deep balls. Well, it's become a real ground and pound team, especially last year with Dylan Sampson. And I was expecting it to be kind of the same way this year. Joey, it's somewhat like that, but Joey Aguilar, to his credit, has been slinging the rock. His performance against Syracuse was awesome. And I also want to shout out Chris Brazel as well. He's differentiated himself so far at wide receiver. He's done a fantastic job this year. Defensively, Tennessee is holding up. They still have that same identity of toughness. Arian Carter has been a standout linebacker as expected, but circling back to defense. And this is the one thing, well, there's two things here. The first thing here that's really going to tip the scale in this game is the fact that Tennessee's two leading corners, Jermod McCoy and Ricky Gibbs in the third, they're both sidelined for this game. And this is a matchup here where Georgia's trying to establish that tempo on offense. They've been trying to see who's that standout guy at receiver going to be. Is it going to be Zachariah Branch? Is it going to be Cash Jones? Who's it going to be? Don't forget Oscar Delp is still there. I love Oscar Delp. Big body tight end, very tough. I think that he'll have a good game on Saturday. But with Tennessee secondary taking that hit, does that breathe some life into Georgia's offense that maybe it had been lacking previously? Another thing that really intrigues me about this game is the matchup between Tennessee's offensive line and Georgia's defensive line, because Georgia's defensive line is full of dogs. I mean, you know how this team recruits with that unit. Always great at generating pressure, getting pressures. Tennessee's offensive line is a work in progress. A lot of inexperienced guys, but a lot of highly rated guys who I think when this thing gels together, it's going to be scary. But this is week 3, and this thing is coming into shape. 2:30 Central kickoff, 3:30 Eastern on ABC. These games used to be on CBS. This is when I just hear the jingling of that SEC on CBS song, going on in my head, and that's what we used to have. But we've lost touch in the world of college football when it comes to TV coverage and production, if you will. We got that 2:30 kick. It's in Neyland. Tennessee has that home field advantage. It's so hard going up to Rocky Top and getting a win. And I think that this game has all the makings of a classic. I think it's going to be physical. I think it's going to be back and forth. I think that Tennessee could even be leading this thing at halftime. But ultimately, I think that, a coach like Kirby Smart is fantastic at exposing weaknesses and deficiencies. Tennessee has it somewhat with the O-line. Tennessee has it with 2 of their starting corners being out. Kirby Smart will find a way to expose that. Georgia is favored by 3.5. And I think that Georgia wins this thing 30-27. But before we transition on to the next game, I just want to acknowledge something here. What's the conversation if Tennessee pulls this off? What is the conversation given the narratives of both these teams? For all these people, including myself, who subscribe to the narrative and the framework that this is going to be a rebuilding team, 7-5, 8-4, and they mess around and beat Georgia week 3. What does that say for Tennessee? No, are they still in the playoff conversation? What does it say about Josh Heupel and the program he's built, the job he's done in Knoxville? In a year that's supposed to be a reset year, he's competing for a playoff spot. I mean, will he get that Rick Barnes lifetime contract? What's the narrative going to be? What's the conversation going to be on Sunday morning if Tennessee pulls this off surrounding the Vols? I mean, optimism through the roof. And what's the conversation around Georgia if they lose this game? Because now you're looking at this, and Georgia got beat by Ole Miss in Oxford last year. Right? I mean, that was a huge win for the Rebs, but that's a game that Georgia usually wins. They go in there, they lose. Very rainy game. But then there's that Notre Dame game on the resume as well last year. There's been that the optics of them struggling on offense ever since the SEC championship. They were down by 17 to Georgia Tech at one point. What's the conversation around Georgia if they lose this game? Is it going to be is Georgia slipping? Is the standard slipping? Are these the same dogs as we had a couple years ago? It's fascinating stuff. Just contemplating the possible outcomes and subsequent conversations of this game. But nonetheless, I think we can all agree this will be a classic between the Vols and the Dogs, per usual.